My name is George Harold Millman. I'm an actor, playwright, and political activist. And today I'm going to talk about the EU referendum fallout and my thoughts on it. Obviously, the results were announced on Thursday night, Friday morning. I was awake all night, just watching the results and feeling an increasing sense of dread, really. And I haven't really written or talked about it in public because I think that I wanted to really get my thoughts together and gauge public opinion before I really did that. And I think it's now high time for me to talk about it. Normally I just write, but today I just felt like making a video. I feel sometimes making a video is a bit more personal. I'm going to start out by saying this is going to sound like I'm just trying to deny things, and I can assure you I'm not, for hopefully reasons that are going to become evident, but the referendum was only advisory. It wasn't legally binding at any point. It wasn't ever intended to be legally binding. And yes, I know that it doesn't look good for our membership in the EU. I do realise that. And I think that at this stage, it's just about doing all that we can. There's a summit meeting in Brussels tomorrow and on Wednesday. When news comes out about what happened there, I will definitely write about that. And I guess we just need to take each day as it comes and work on each individual fight to try to make what happens next as pleasant for all of us as it physically can be. I do think that the results of this whole business have brought out the nastiest sides of us. We've had Leave voters attacking Remainers, we've had Remainers attacking Leave voters. I did have quite a shocking instance on Friday with someone who I've talked to quite a lot over the past year, who I consider to be quite a good friend of mine, who was very angry and deleted me because of my Remain position. And I didn't really understand why. You know, if I'd been saying, oh, you've put us in this place, it's all your fault, I could somewhat understand his position, but I think I've generally been exceptionally polite. I've been calm, I've been considered, and I've challenged people. I don't really understand why people are reacting that way. After all, people like that voted on the side that won. So surely they should be happy. Surely I should be the one that would have more cause to be annoyed there. But I guess that's human nature. I was looking at a video this morning, quite a disturbing video that someone shared, which is in Sheldon. And it involved a group of people harassing a man nearby his mosque. The gentleman himself handled it very well. You know, he was very calm, polite about it. But what really shocked me was the attitude of the police, because they were just saying to him, stay on this side of the road, don't go over there, don't provoke them. And I just think, no, that's not an acceptable way to handle people. If someone has, if there's a legitimate reason, if there's a reasonable belief that someone could come into harm from someone if they went onto the other side of the road, it's the police's job to prevent those people from doing that, not to keep the other person on the other side of the road because they've done nothing wrong. For me personally, I think it's really, really important to be as pleasant and as reasonable about this whole thing as possible. I have seen a lot of things, you know, even from people on the from the point of view of Remain, saying, oh, no, I'm going to swear. If you don't like swearing, just close the video for saying, oh, you know, fuck you to anyone who voted Leave, you know, you've screwed us all up. And to be honest, I can exactly hear where you're coming from, because that's how I feel. Don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely fuming about this, but we can't afford to let emotions get on top of us. in the state we are in now, we do not have time to fight amongst ourselves. There are campaigns, there are petitions. There's a petition about a second referendum. I'll come to that in a minute, about whether or not I think it's a good idea. And if we're going to get anywhere, if any of us are going to get a good time out of this, we need to stand together. And being aggressive to each other and bringing out this whole us and them thing, and it has become an us and them thing, and I think that's been a huge issue with regards to the whole campaign, actually, because there's been, just to use the colours they used on the results programme, there's been a blue team and a yellow team with not enough room for discussion between the two and compromise and understanding of what people actually want. Because I believe that Caroline Lucas summed up the whole thing on Friday morning when she said the vote wasn't really a vote to leave the EU, it was a vote against the establishment. David Cameron has, in most people's opinions, done an absolutely atrocious job as Prime Minister over the last 6 years. He promised a referendum, he said that he didn't want to leave, and people decided to go against the establishment and believe I was going to say half-truths, but actually lies that the Farages and the Johnsons and the Goves of the world have told us. And it shouldn't have been like that. If we were going to have a referendum, there should have been reasonable discussion on both sides and facts, and not half-truths, because a lot of the spin has already been proven to be false, like the whole £350 million claim. I forgot his name for a second, Nigel Farage went back on that within, I think, an hour and a half of the results being announced. So, as I said, we need to stand together. We didn't stand together during the referendum, which was a fundamental mistake that we all made. And we need to, if we're going to get any further at all. Having said that, I completely disagree with some of the comments that I've seen on Facebook saying, yeah, it's over now, there's no point posting about it, it happened. Move on, there's no point posting and being angry and whatever. And I don't agree with that because, you know, I'm 22 years old. My generation have been denied, actually I was going to say denied an advantage, but that's not quite accurate because that is, an advantage assumes that that's better than the norm. So it's more like we've been plunged into a major disadvantage for potentially the rest of our lives. And there are so many things going on. My friend Jess made a video where she said that, I can't remember the exact figure that she said, but the amount of racism, the amount of racist comments on social media has risen to something like 300%. I wish I could remember the exact figure. It was something like that. But that is huge. That is really, really huge. People are using this basically to justify their own racist beliefs. This weekend we have been living in it would be accurate to call it a racist dystopia, and we should be cross about this. I'm absolutely fuming, and you know, if I'd let my own emotions get on top of me, I probably would have been one of those fuck you people. I just think it's more important to remain calm, but do not feel that it is in any way inappropriate to express your anger about the situation. It's not a good idea to direct that towards anyone else, but just expressing it as a general point of principle, I think is very important. I think it's really important to make people see what we are in right now. Okay, I'm going to calm myself for a second and move on to what I was saying about the second referendum petition, because I've been saying a lot about this referendum petition. Another Angry Voice, which is a blog that I'm really interested in. I really agree with a lot of what he says. The guy on there thinks Thomas G. Clarke thinks it's a waste of time, not going to help. And on this occasion I have to disagree. Because it was so close. It was, I think, 51.9 to 49.1. You can't really get much closer a vote than that. There are a lot of people ever since who have said that they would like to change their vote. particularly the postal voters who may have voted several weeks ago and have since realised that they were wrong. So if we had another vote, we don't know if the result would be the same. I did see someone today saying that even taking that into account, they don't think it's enough people to make a difference, and maybe that's the case. But we don't actually know how many people would vote differently. Just because a certain number of people have come out doesn't mean there isn't anyone who is too ashamed to do so, because frankly, I think if I voted Leave, I would be too ashamed to admit that. The other thing is that if there was a second referendum, I think it's really important that 14 to 17-year-olds should have a vote. I think that the age of voting should be lowered to 16 generally, but it's not quite the same as in a general election. In a general election, it changes within 5 years, so it doesn't make a huge amount of difference if underage people can't vote. With a referendum as big as this, it is very important. Scotland allowed under 18s to vote in their independence referendum, and I firmly believe that we should as well. So I don't know how it would be if there was another referendum. If there was another referendum and the result came out the same, I would take it on the chin and just be like, okay, we've lost this one, let's move on. Let's look at each individual campaign to try to make things all right for us. But right now, with it being this close and there being this much controversy around it, in particular with the amount of controversy behind the lies and half-truths that have been spread by the Leave side, I do definitely think that it is worth doing. And even if that doesn't work, as I said, there are loads of further campaigns. I'll put a few things in the video description. I'm not going to be able to put that many because I've seen so many links, so many amazing articles that I'm not even going to be able to remember them all in order to be able to share them with you, but there are so many out there. There are petitions on 38 Degrees, there are petitions on change.org, there are petitions on Avaz, there are the petitions on the Government Parliament website as well. I've also got my own petition that I'm planning to start. I'm not actually going to say what that's about because I haven't quite decided yet how I'm going to go about it, what platform I'm going to use and how I'm going to phrase it. By the way, there's a washing machine on in my house, so if there's a bit of a rumbling noise in the background, that's what it is. But anyway, yeah, I haven't decided quite how I'm going to do it, so I'm not going to quite jeopardise it by talking about the petition just yet, but I will write about it on my blog, which is actorandpoliticalactivist.blogspot.co.uk, as soon as it's sort of organised, and that is a when and not an if. And there's one more thing I want to talk about, which is Jeremy Corbyn, because there have been a lot of suggestions that he hasn't really campaigned hard enough. And I think that's really unfair. I've just got a bit of an article here from the Canary, or maybe I'll put it in the video description actually, but I don't know, where was it, because I read this yesterday. Yes, there was one there was one event he went to in order to campaign for the Remain side, where the only thing the media reported was the fact that he was heckled and not really on what he said. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realise. The media has been so instrumental in this. Rupert Murdoch is very well known as being a Leave supporter, but he owns so much of the world's media empire that I think it was probably quite inevitable that the media was going to be very geared toward the Remain side, the Leave side. Apologies. God, I almost said something. Yeah. Yes, I think that was always inevitable, and that's a major concern, particularly because of the generational gap, because obviously that's been quite a big thing as well, the generational gap between young people and older people, because a lot of younger people voted Remain and a lot of older people voted Leave, and without wishing to resort to stereotypes, statistically, older people are more likely to believe the media and not take it with a pinch of salt and not be likely to get their news from other sources such as Facebook and independent blogs, which is what a lot of the rest of us are turning to if we can't trust the mainstream media. But that's another reason why it's not totally democratic, and another reason why I think there should definitely be another referendum. But going back onto Jeremy Corbyn, a lot of the Labour MPs have stood up against Jeremy Corbyn, which, to be honest, they've been looking for an excuse to do for a long time and have been doing since he came to power, and saying he's not the right person to lead us, etc. And I really don't know where that comes from, because personally, I think that Jeremy Corbyn has been great. Admittedly, he has not been as visible in the whole EU thing as some of the other people have, but again, I completely believe that that's quite largely down to the media. But the really interesting thing is that I don't think it's all Blairite, Blatcherite, I should say, Labour MPs who can't deal with the idea of Labour going back to grassroots, because I had an email just before I made this video from Thangam Debonair, who is my local MP, who is Labour, who said she's stepping down from her role because, much as she has a great deal of respect for Jeremy Corbyn, she doesn't think that he's quite the right person to lead them. And it made me think that Corbyn is, in the Corbyn situation, it's one of those situations where so many people have said something that people are starting to believe it. Like, even my mother is starting to believe it, and she and I are normally very together on political concerns. But she was saying, oh, is he really the right person to lead? And I was saying, but what's he done to suggest that he shouldn't be? And she wasn't quite sure. There is a vote of no confidence taking place, and there's also a vote of confidence taking place, which I'd encourage everyone to sign. I think that's by 38 Degrees. I'll try and find it and put a link in the video description. And I think that Jeremy Corbyn is one of the few mainstream politicians we can actually rely on in this place, because I still think that he's a man of principle. I still think that he campaigned very hard to remain in the EU. And there's not that much else I can say, but I think that at this stage, we all need to take a moment. Oh, I've got a Facebook notification. I do apologise for having Facebook open whilst this is going on. I just remember why I had Facebook open. It was because I had something I was going to tell you about, and which I completely forgot about, which is this don't take no for an answer thing that someone shared this morning, which is an instance of numerous countries making referendum decisions with regards to the EU that haven't actually gone through. Denmark in 1992, there was the Maastricht Treaty, the no vote was 51.7%, made to vote again. Sweden in 2003, with joining the Euro. France, that one was accepted, but France in 2005, EU Constitution. Netherlands in 2005, EU Constitution. Those were both ignored. Ireland in 2008, with the Lisbon Treaty, was made to vote again. I'm not 100% sure that all those are accurate, because it's just something that someone shared on Facebook, but I think there's most likely to be an element of truth in that, if not the whole truth. I was just coming to the end of this video, and then I remembered something that I'd completely forgotten to say, which was one of the key cruxes of my point, so I apologise for being so disorganised. But I think those instances show that this doesn't have to be the end of it, and that's another reason why the second referendum idea, I think, is quite a good one. Goodness, I'm nearly at 20 minutes. I did not expect this to go on that long. I think that's pretty much as I want to say, though. I think this video started out being quite together and forward, and then towards the end just got a bit crazy, so I do apologise for that. I just made a list of everything I wanted to talk about, and maybe I skipped over something at some point, but anyway. Please do sign the petition for a second referendum. Please do sign all the other petitions. I will write about my own petition when it's set up and sorted, but I'm definitely planning it. And please just try to be nice to each other. Being confrontational just isn't worth it, honestly. Thanks.